You are listening to Let's Talk Trio on podcasts. Keep up with the latest episodes by downloading the Podbean app or stream episodes via our social media accounts. Search for Let's Talk Trio on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. This episode is sponsored by StudentAccess. StudentAccess, the leader in TRIO software. StudentAccess is an online database solution that allows TRIO programs to track their students' information, connect with students by text messages, streamline the APR, and work from anywhere, all online, with automatic updates for changes from the Department of Education. Their technical support team includes former TRIO staff and has over 50 years of combined experience working with TRIO. Make it easier to focus on your priority, the students. For more information and to request a free demo, visit their website at www.studentaccess.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-801-1232. That website again is www.studentaccess.com or 1-800-801-1232. Be sure to share your favorite episodes on your social media by tapping that share button. This is a great way to support the podcast. Now here's your host, Juan Rivas.
Thank you, Amelia, for that wonderful introduction. Hello, listener, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Trio. This is Season 6, Episode 21. I am your host, Juan Rivas. In today's episode, we have Natalie DeMarco, TRIO McNair participant at Montana State University-Bozeman. Natalie is on the podcast to share about her TRIO journey, joining TRIO McNair, research opportunities, and so much more. Coming up in just a bit, Natalie DeMarco. A heartfelt thanks to our individual supporters, Angelica Vialpando, Rosario Riley, Dr. Ryan Barone, Dr. Jamie Motley, Dr. Jeff Nepute, Angelica Valdez, Felicia Rivera, Eric LaMaster, and Jaded Electronics. A huge thanks to our corporate sponsors, TRIOJoblist.com, NOSOTROS Education Center, the TRIOStore.com, powered by Proforma. Visit www.thetriostore.com, your source for TRIO graduation stoles, and StudentAccess. Thank you so much for your continued support of this podcast. You too can be a sponsor of the podcast. Head on over to Patreon and search for Let's Talk Trio. Choose one of 4 patron levels. You can support this podcast for as little as $1 a month. If you own a business and would like to run an ad on our podcast, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com for details. Become a supporter with a one-time donation to the podcast business PayPal account. Our business handle is @LetsTalkTrio. Your support helps lift TRIO voices. If you would like to nominate a participant, advocate, staff, or alumni to be on the podcast, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com. That email again is letstalktrio@gmail.com. Again, a great episode featuring Natalie DeMarco, TRIO McNair participant at Montana State University-Bozeman. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode.
Hi, TRIO Nation. My guest on the Let's Talk Trio podcast is a current participant of the TRIO McNair program at Montana State University-Bozeman. She is currently majoring in geology. When she is not studying or busy with schoolwork, my guest enjoys skiing, reading, camping, and rock hounding. I'm going to ask her about that because that sounds very interesting. Welcome to the podcast, Natalie DeMarco. Natalie, welcome.
Hi, thank you for the introduction. I'm actually really excited to be on my first podcast. I've never been on one before, so this is exciting.
This is awesome. So we are first very fortunate to have you because, one, you are our first TRIO person from Montana. So this is a historic first for this podcast.
That's great. Yeah, I wasn't super surprised by that actually, because given Montana's population and like my school being like one of the largest schools in Montana, it actually makes a lot of sense.
Well, we are very grateful for giving us a bit of your time today. I'm looking forward to hearing and learning more about your TRIO journey. So let's get started on that.
Of course. Yeah, when I heard of this opportunity from our program coordinator, I was really happy to join in on the conversation.
Awesome. So first things first, let's do a little bit of a check-in. How's this semester going for you?
It's pretty busy. You caught me right at the beginning of midterm week. I just had my
Ooh.
first midterm today.
Uh-huh.
So my schedule is very packed, and I'm also involved with a lot of extracurriculars on campus, which keeps me busier than most.
Wow. So again, thank you so much for giving us a little bit of your time in this especially busy week for you. For our listeners, can you describe the state of Montana and the Bozeman area? What is that like living out there?
Yeah, so Montana is a very like open place, both like very literally and metaphorically. Montana as a whole has a very respectful culture, and locals reach out to one another. They help each other when needed. Everyone very much knows everyone here, which is very, in a way, similar to how I grow up. So this was like very natural for me. Everyone loves to be outdoors here. It's one of the reasons why I moved here. The locals also respect both the landowners here present day and the original native tribal lands of the area as well, which I think is very unique. Bozeman in particular brings a different atmosphere to Montana. A lot of people in town care about the same things. However, I would say there's quite a few more ski bums like myself in the area, due to the Bridger Ski Resort, which is only 30 minutes away from the college. So a lot of
Oh,
people
wow.
here
Very
are like,
convenient.
it's Bridger Bowl University, which is really
Yeah.
fun. But people also love to go camping in nearby Highlight Canyon, which is 10-minute drive. So yeah, it's pretty great.
Wonderful. So if I understand this right, you moved there. So are you from somewhere else entirely, or are you from Montana?
Yeah, so I'm actually from Buffalo, New York.
No way.
Yeah, I grew up like 30 minutes south of Buffalo, but
Uh-huh.
nobody knows where that is, so I just say I'm from Buffalo.
I mean, it's more convenient when people. So I'm originally from Los Angeles. More
Okay,
specifically, I'm from an area called Hawaiian Gardens. Nobody says Hawaiian Gardens, so we just say Los Angeles. So
right.
totally relate. What is something that you've learned about yourself this past year?
In the past year, I've learned that I'm very fond of like my independence. Growing up, that I like learned how to be independent due to circumstances.
Hmm.
However, I like really resented that because I got like a lot of comments like you're mature for your age, and those kind of like had like a negative impact. However, like going through college and like other things I've learned throughout the years, um, especially this year, like I know that without my independence today, I would have never been able to accomplish all the things that I've done, like starting my own club on campus, receiving certain awards, partaking in undergraduate research. And so I've truly learned that it's like something to be proud of, especially in my last year at college.
Absolutely. So we're going to take it back a little bit because as we did this introduction for you, you are very avid in skiing. You do a lot of reading, camping, and rock hounding. I'm very curious about that. Was this something you sought out, or did someone introduce you to it? How did all of this begin for you?
Yeah, so some of them, yes and no. I started skiing when I was 5, which after moving to Montana is like pretty common practice here. Most people start when they're 2, which I thought was
Mm.
very odd. But my mom actually learned right beside me. In kindergarten, I had this friend, and his mom taught skiing through private lessons, and my mom was like, "Let's do it." And so that's how I learned how to ski.
Wow.
Around 8, I was starting to do all of the slopes in my area, and I was also doing laps around my mom, which she did not appreciate. So yeah, I still pursue skiing as often as I can. It's a bit of an expensive hobby though, so I have to limit myself to what I can afford. But and they're also, the slopes here are like very complex and different. There's a lot of like cliff jumping here, and like I'm more of a
Mm.
milder person when it comes to that. I'm
Cliff
not
jumping.
trying to risk
Wow.
my life every time I go skiing.
Yeah, yeah.
I do love to read. I actually used to hate reading when I was younger, but then I got really bored one summer and I picked up one of my sister's book and I kind of fell in love with the story.
Wow.
Um, and now I have a dream of owning like my own personal library in my future house. That's great.
If you don't mind me asking, I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. What was that book that you absolutely fell in love with, and you're like, woke your passion up for reading again?
Yeah. So it's actually Twilight, which is like super weird,
I will
but
not.
yeah, like not what we thought. But I don't know. There was something about the fantasy world that I was like very intrigued by. I still love
Mhm.
fantasy books. Like I read a lot of like dystopian novels now. So I've definitely upgraded in the reading world. But yeah, it definitely started with Twilight, if I'm being honest.
Right on. Tell us a little bit more about camping and how that happened for you.
Yeah, so camping is something I've always done with my family since the very beginning. We had a camper though, so it was more like glamping for some people, but we usually had like all of my family there, like all of my cousins, my aunts and uncles, and I was just like this big get together for a weekend. We'd go out to like all the state parks. And now it's mainly just like me and a couple friends. We're cooped up in a tent somewhere, but it's still like great time. And I honestly sometimes prefer tent camping. So I don't know, that's just me.
Gotcha.
Um, and my last favorite hobby, rock hounding, is
Yes. What
mainly,
is that?
yeah, so I got involved with it because it's my major is geology, but you basically just like go out hunting for rocks. And
Mm.
like you kind of like research which areas have which types of rocks. Like in Highlight Canyon, where a lot of people go, there's opal in one of the hiking trails there. So a lot of people
Hmm.
go rock hounding over there to get some opal. Um, Sapphires are really common in Montana, so a lot of people try and find sapphires. But yeah, I've just like kind of fell in love with the way rocks and minerals like have been brought to the surface and how they deform.
Hmm.
And now I have a whole rock collection in my room that crowds every shelf. But
You're a true geology person then. Like
yeah,
that's when I think about a stereotypical geology person, they have a collection of rocks.
yes, I actually have my favorite one like sitting next to me in case you want to see it. But
That's awesome. We gotta include that in the clip as we promote your episode.
okay, perfect.
Can you talk about your goals for the remainder of 2024? I know we're recording right here at the toward the end of October. What are your goals for the remainder of 2024?
Yeah, right now since I'm in midterm week, it's really just to, like get through midterms, get good test grades, get a good GPA. I'm holding above a 3.5. I want to continue holding above a 3.5.
That is awesome.
And really just make it through this semester because next semester I go study abroad. I got placed in
Ooh,
Australia for a
that's
semester.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I'm really just trying to get through this semester so I can go to Australia. Like,
that's awesome.
yeah, I hope to also successfully accomplish my research goals from this past summer. I spent some time in the Elkhorn Mountains, which are like just south of Helena, Montana, which is the state capital.
Mhm.
Because I'm presenting my research findings at the American Geophysical Union meeting in December.
That is congratulations. That is amazing.
Thank
Like
you.
being an undergraduate and preparing yourself for all of those research things. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, Natalie, take us back to your childhood. So, this is the part of the pod where you really get to talk about yourself. Describe your family, and your upbringing.
Yeah, so this was definitely a big question. Mainly because my family is big and I have like 30 first cousins
Oh,
alone.
wow.
Yeah, we're all very Italian. I'm personally 50% Italian. My grandfather was like 75% Italian, like very big on it. I'm also very loud. And like something like people always tell me like, "Oh, you're really loud." And I'm like, "If you think I'm loud, you need to hear my family because they're even louder." But yeah, I grew up in a small town outside of Buffalo, so my Sundays were dedicated to watching the Bills games. Most of the time they lose, but that's
Ah,
okay. But yeah, I truly do love the place that I grew up. It always felt like home. And I actually grew up on the same street as a lot of my cousins. My dad's side of the family, they all had property on the same street, so it kind of became known as like DeMarco Lane.
oh, wow.
And we all went to the same high school, and I was like the last one to graduate from that high school in the family. And so yeah, being home, like it's like a huge thing for me. And I wouldn't trade that experience of like growing up, being around my cousins every day for like the world. I love the way I grew up, and I wish more people got to experience that because I know a lot of people who like aren't as close with their cousins or don't know some of their cousins, and I'm like, really? Like, I was always
Yeah.
within 5 minutes of them. Like, but yeah, my immediate family is still pretty large. I'm the youngest of five. My oldest sister is 33 years old, and I turned 21 in 1 week, so we're 14 years apart. If I
Oh,
did that
that's a large age gap. I mean, if you don't mind me asking, and I'm going to interrupt you, uh, I imagine either, and I find with siblings that have large age gaps, they're either really close or they don't really talk. Where do you and your sister fall in that spectrum?
Yeah, so when we were younger, like I was in kindergarten when she left the house after high school and she like went on to college. So
Hmm.
sometimes I tell people I like didn't formally meet my sister until I was like 13. Because
Uh-huh.
that's when like she started coming home and like visiting more often and I was like, "Oh yeah, like you're here." Like and
Sis.
right. And so it took like a while for our bond to like truly grow because of the age gap, but like we have found that her and I are the most similar out of all of our siblings.
Oh,
And it's like
wow.
very odd. Like we both are very career driven. We love our education. We do a lot of extracurriculars. We're very passionate. We both have STEM degrees. We love being outdoors. We love to travel. And over the years, we found that has actually brought us significantly closer together.
That is amazing. Talk a little bit more about your mom and dad. What are they like, and what do they do?
Yeah, so my dad was a truck driver. He retired after COVID, like right after COVID. So yeah, but he was a truck driver. He started as a one-man shop. He took over the family business. He dropped out of high school when he was 18 to take it over. So he does not have his GED. He then grew his business into 13 operating trucks, and then he became more of like the management operations side of things. And he hired on 13 people. So that's just kind of like over the years what my dad has done. When he was 18, or when he was 20, he married my mom. My mom was 18. She had just graduated high school. My mom was a full-time stay-at-home mom. She had a job like the first couple years of their marriage, but she was pretty much just stay at home the whole time, which I really appreciate growing up and being close with my mom because of that. And my siblings, compared to my parents, like we all have very different careers.
I imagine also, very wide and varied.
Yeah, and like also very different upbringings because of like the age gaps. Like my oldest sister is like, you had such different parents compared to what I grew up with. Like even though we have the same parents, like but yeah, so my oldest sister is an astrophysicist who works at NASA studying the solar wind patterns on the sun. Both of my brothers work at the General Mills factory in Buffalo, which is the local Cheerio factory. So our city smells like Buffalo, or our city smells like Cheerio is like kind of the thing there. And my other sister is a data analyst for a bank company that detects fraud.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And like my upbringing in general was very centered on like hard work ethic and being there for your family and neighbors and like doing what you love. Even though we all like necessarily didn't agree on these things, like it still is kind of like our core.
Absolutely. So this next question is going to be a little bit tough because it's going to make you think about how your family thinks about you. So how would your family describe you?
Yeah. I would hope they say nice things, but we also have the tendency to pick on each other a little bit. So there are definitely some of that in there.
Absolutely.
But overall, I think my family would best describe me as being a go-getter. Basically just like knowing what I want and not stopping until I achieve that goal. Very similar to my oldest sister actually. Yep. But however, I'm also has been like always known as like the more compassionate sibling. I'm always like going out of my way. Like I notice like someone's having a bad day and I'll like go eat lunch with them or something. Yeah. I'm always like doing these little things to help other people feel better. And I feel like that's not as common for some of my other family members. So they're always like, wow, you're so like compassionate. And like my mom like used to call me her little helper when I was growing up because like I used to like when she was having a bad day, I would like be like, Mom, like what do you need? Like and she'd be like, oh, like it's cute. Like and I also know that my dad would for sure say that my sisters and I share the same volume of voice. All of my sisters and I are very opinionated and we are like not afraid to show it. And my brothers are like more quiet and they're like, whatever. And so yeah, my dad always says like we're really loud.
I mean, but it's good, right? Because you're able to speak up and really advocate not only for yourself, but for other people. And that shows your compassion, which is outstanding.
Yeah.
What do you remember most about your childhood?
Yeah. So I remember always laughing. Like, I mean, I grew up with my cousins around me, my siblings, and I was always surrounded by people. I was never afraid to express myself. There's some wacky, goofy photos of me as a kid, dressed in the most like outrageous outfits and like doing the most wackiest things. And I'm like, yeah, that was pretty much me. Like,
now you're making a claim, Natalie, so we need to be able to provide evidence and post it on our Instagram.
Okay. I think I have the right picture in mind. But yeah, I was always like the loud kid in school and I dressed with whatever I wanted. I was crazy. And I also like was always very curious. I asked a lot of questions and that's still something I do today. I always remember feeling loved and like surrounded by family and they would drop anything for me to be there in any shape or form that they could. And even today, they still are very similar to that. And so like my main thing is that when I was a kid, like I never felt alone and there was like always someone in my corner.
Oh, that's awesome.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Are you seeking guidance to enhance your TRIO project's effectiveness and success? Look no further. Nosotros Education Center, NEC, is here to empower your TRIO project with expert consulting services. NEC's mission is to promote the effectiveness and impact of TRIO programs. Since 2003, NEC has specialized in providing professional development and in-service staff trainings, allowable cost services, for TRIO projects across the country. The team at NEC, with over 60 years of combined TRIO experience, offers customized workshops and seminars for project staff, compliance assessments, external evaluations, working on and submitting APRs, database customization and training, developments of policies and procedures manuals, and project implementation or reorganization services. Additionally, NEC has secured over $774 million in federal funding with a 92% success rate through their live and on-demand proposal workshops, assistance with data collection and review, detailed technical reviews, and comprehensive proposal development services. Join the hundreds of colleges, agencies, and TRIO projects across the country who benefited from NEC's expertise. Nosotros Education Center, your partner in TRIO's project success. Visit their website at nosotros.edu.org. Again, that's nosotrosedu.org.
And now, back to the podcast.
Do you remember how you felt about school? Because for a lot of students, I feel like they initially have this hesitation, or maybe they fall on the spectrum of like, oh my gosh, I was looking forward to school. What's your take, and what did you feel towards school?
Yeah, I kind of had like a mix. Like I always really loved school. I was not a morning person, and I'm still not a morning person. So getting up for the bus in the morning was like the awfulest part of my day. But once I was like at school, I was fine. I really just loved to go see my friends every day. I liked my classes. I hated math, but there was some bad parts of school. Some of my peers weren't as nice as others. Sometimes I got bullied, but regardless, like I always ended up having a good day somehow. And so I felt like I always really liked school. That changed like later on in my career a little bit. I like didn't like school for a little bit, and I liked school again, and it got a little complicated, but
So kind of a love-hate relationship with school sometimes.
yeah.
Gotcha. Did you have a favorite subject or topic in school?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to be an artist, like
Ooh,
all the
yeah.
way until like ninth grade. I was like, I'm gonna be an artist, and I really loved art. I can't say I was very good at it, but I really liked expressing creative freedom. And I remember like I often did this during school spirit week. I would always have like the best fitted ones, and like I'd have like the most, like I'd make my own shirts for it. It was crazy. So art and like themes and stuff was always something I was really interested in.
That's amazing. Did you have any additional interest outside of art and your academics? Did you have any other interests in like music or government, athletics?
Yeah. I had some athletics. I had been playing soccer since I was 5, so I was already like pretty involved in soccer when I got to like middle school. I did it throughout. I was on like the town team or club team or something like that.
Hmm.
I did start lacrosse in 7th grade, which was a little new. I did that for 2 years. I was temporarily in the orchestra band or orchestra string instrument. I think I played the viola. I wasn't the biggest fan
Oh,
of it,
wow.
so I
Hmm.
like started it because it's like a requirement for the first year, and then you can like continue on if you want. So I did it for like another year, and then I was like, I'm done. And plus, I had to get up at like 5 a.m. for practice, and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
Um, but I also did a couple musicals. My like school district had like a very good arts and music program, which is also why I was really into art at the time. So yeah, I really enjoyed going to the school plays. I was in a couple of them. So yeah, it was really great.
That's awesome. Did any of those interests that you had, so art, athletics, and all of that, did any of that carry over into high school?
Yeah, so mainly soccer. I was really passionate about soccer. I was on the JV team for the first 2 years of high school. I did quit due to injury. I have like really weird ankles, and I just do not like running. Which is funny because then later I joined the track and field team, but I
Oh,
don't know.
funny.
Um, but yeah, I still did carry on the musical stuff though. I actually performed in 42nd Street. My school did like a
Ooh.
reenactment of it.
Uh-huh.
I learned how to tap dance in that, so like that was really fun. I'd never tap danced
Ooh.
before. So yeah, I did that my junior year, and we were actually like one of the few schools that got to do their musical in our county before COVID, like shut
Hmm.
everything down. It was like the week before like we were sent
Oh,
home.
I remember. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so we were like one of the few schools who got to perform, and I like felt so bad for all the other schools who like spent months practicing, and then in the end like couldn't
Yeah.
do anything. Like,
Dang. Yeah. Well, I mean, at least you were able to put your practice into practice, and
exactly.
that's good.
Yeah.
Um, I was going to interrupt you for a second because I want to go back to the fact that you ended up doing track.
Mhm.
How did that come about? Because uh, I'll be honest with you, Natalie, not everybody wakes up and says, "I'm going to run today."
Yeah, that's actually very fair. It was something that my lacrosse coach had pointed out. She was like, "Wow, like you're a really good sprinter. Like, have you ever considered doing track?" And I was like, actually, no. Like, I have not. Like, I always really liked track. And even when I did soccer that same year, like earlier before, she had said the same thing. And so even though she was my lacrosse coach, she was like, you why not like give it a shot? Because they were like during the same season. Um, and I had already like previously told her that like I wasn't really feeling lacrosse anymore. And she was like, well, you should still stay active and like go to track and like test it
Mhm.
out. So I tried out for track. I made it and I was like, wow, well, like I realized I was pretty fast. So I don't know, that felt good. Like,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Can you talk about your high school experience? What was that like?
Yeah, so my high school experience was definitely really different from like my middle school and like my childhood experience. Mainly because in like the summer of eighth grade, moving into ninth grade, my mom got diagnosed with a rare autoimmune disease called Guillain-Barré syndrome.
I'm
It
sorry to hear
kept her
that.
like, it's okay. It kept her in and out of hospitals like all 4 years of my high school career. Like she missed many Christmases and like Thanksgivings and summers, and like it was always just like this battle. So it like
Hmm.
hugely impacted my home life, and then it kind of started to affect my academics as well.
Oh.
My grades started to slip. I did get my grades back up by the end of my high school career, so like it ended up being okay. But it definitely was a struggle, mainly because I felt like super unsupported during this time. I was like, I didn't want to tell anyone about it. And then like some
Hmm.
teachers found out and they started reaching out to me, and I like felt really weird about sharing. And it
Hmm.
just like wasn't something I like knew how to process at the time.
Hmm.
And like I was going through like having a really great like and strong childhood bond to like there wasn't a lot of laughing and there like wasn't a lot of fun at home anymore. And because of that, I tried to be like really funny in school and I ended up like trying to go for like the class clown vibe.
Yeah,
um
yeah.
yeah, and like just trying to make the most out of my school day before I went home and got all sad.
Oh.
So a lot of my teachers like saw this as like very unprofessional and they like questioned if I was like good enough. When I got my grades back up, I like asked them about being in like honors programs and stuff, and they were like, "Oh, we don't think you're ready for that yet." And I like talked to them about college, and they were like, "Oh, like maybe you should take a gap year," and like just weren't
Hmm.
very encouraging of like successfully moving forward. And
Hmm.
I realized that like later on, I realized that what most of them didn't see is that I was like trying to hide pain by having extra fun at school. And but because of that, they like didn't think that I was ready, and like it was
Hmm.
overall bad experience. But I did have a lot of friends in high school, and some of them I still talk to today. Shout out to my homie from fifth grade, still call him all the time. And I also found out what I was passionate about in ninth grade of high school. So I know that like without going through all of that, like I would have never been able to be where I am today.
Awesome. So, and I'm gonna kind of stay on this point for a little bit because it feels like, right, for a lot of college going students, the ones that get passed over for any sort of opportunities are the ones that really need the most support and the encouragement to do that. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that where the teachers, administrators felt that you weren't ready for the next level or you weren't ready for an honors class, which, it feels defeating.
Yeah, it definitely I agree with that firsthand. But
So we talked a little bit about your high school. You said that there was a point in your high school career where you realized where your passions were. Is that when you started thinking about college, or how soon did college come up for you?
yeah, so it happened pretty quickly. Like in ninth grade, It's required by New York State that everyone takes like an introduction to earth science course.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned about like tectonics and like geology and rocks and minerals, and I immediately was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So ever since ninth grade, I've just known that like I really love this field of study. This is like the one thing in school besides art that I was like, wow, I could like see myself doing this. And I wasn't very good at art, so I was like, I may as well do something that I'm good at. And I realized very quickly that I like really was really good at earth science and geology, and I was like, wow, I can like make something out of this. So I did some research, and I kind of like found out that you need a degree for geology, and like more specifically, a master's or PhD is preferred. So I was like, well, I guess I'm going to college. Like,
So one, I think that was the moment, or you're talking about that moment where you're like, I got to go to college. And so because these paths take a lot of years, right, of study and all of that, who did you speak with about your college plans? Because if were mom and dad aware, or did you know that you had to talk to somebody that was in that field?
yeah. So I first spoke to my oldest sister, who I mentioned before, like the sun person, about my dreams of becoming a geologist and like wanting to go to college, because she was in her PhD program at the time. So
Hmm.
she was like, I'm doing this right now. And like, she was always the one, like, she helped with all of the school stuff, even though she wasn't directly there. Like, she was the person who knew about this stuff. So she was the person to call. So she was like the first person I ran to. And she also was the reason why like my other siblings were able to pursue a degree and make it through college. So we kind of like always expected that I was going to go to college. And so it just felt right to call her and be like, hey, like, I think I want to do this now. And she was like nothing but supportive, and she always set up my path for success. And I don't think I would have made it this far in my academic career without her.
Hmm.
And outside of that, I also spoke to one of my favorite teachers, Mr. Kuchikowski. He was the one earth science teacher. He was one of the earth science teachers. There was technically two. He was a lab teacher. But he actually was like one of the few teachers who was like, you're really smart. Like, you're built for college. Like, if you wanted to do this, I think you totally could. And like really enhanced my passion for geology, because he also studied geology in college. So he was like, I'm really glad I get to talk to a student that's as interested in this subject as I am.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, as far as my parents, my dad has never been very fond on like college, and like my other siblings went to college, but he still thinks it's like a big waste of time. But he also like understands that like this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. So
Hmm.
although like he doesn't agree with it, he is just like, like if you're gonna be using your degree and like putting use to it, like you do what you want. And I'm like, okay.
That's cool. That's cool. So as you know, first generation students face a lot of barriers to access for college. Resources are often very tough to navigate. So when people talk about financial aid, Pell Grants, and all that, that is very overwhelming. What type of support did you get to help you make sense of this college process?
Yeah, my siblings were definitely my biggest support. Again, like my sister taught me everything I need to know. But I think they all as a whole like taught me what the college application looks like, and like what people are looking for in your essays. Like I would draft essays, and I'd have all my sisters and my brothers like proofread all of them and be like, someone help me with this. So they definitely helped me out a lot. My oldest sister in particular helped me out with like the funding stuff, like applying for scholarships and like teaching me what Pell Grants are and like the difference between a direct unsubsidized and subsidized loan and like which one I should get. And all of that. And I also got a lot of other help from Mr. Kuchikowski again, because he like helped me put together some schools that had really good geology programs, both in the area and out of the area, which was very helpful to make sense of like, where do I actually want to go? Like,
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of where you wanted to go, what colleges made your list?
yeah, so Montana State University was not my first pick.
What?
They're actually my last pick.
No, really? They were your last pick.
Yeah, they weren't even like a consideration for the first
Oh,
half. Yeah, but I love this school. Like I wouldn't trade it for the world. But
gotcha. Yeah, yeah.
my dream school was actually CU Boulder.
Ah, oh,
I
see you,
waited,
Boulder.
yeah. So I waited several months. I was on like their waiting list. They hadn't approved me
Hmm.
yet. I had heard back from all my other colleges, and then they finally approved me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I get to go here. And then I looked at like the financial aid package, and they didn't give me anything. And I was like,
Oh,
okay,
nothing.
nothing.
Ah,
No scholarships, no financial aid. And I
dang.
realized like I would have had to taken out like $120,000 in loans.
Oof,
And I was like,
oof.
I can't afford this. Like, um,
Right.
I also did apply to like other backup schools in Colorado because Colorado was kind of like the dream destination as well.
Ah, yeah.
So I applied to like Colorado State, Fort Collins, and another school in Colorado, but I kind of forgot, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, and then I also had some backup schools closer to home, such as University of Boulder or University of Buffalo, and so UB. And then I also applied to Cortland, which is where my brother went to college as well. And then he
Wow.
told me I wasn't allowed to go to Cortland if he was there. So um, and then I heard back from all the other schools, and I did get a pretty good like package from Fort Collins.
Mhm.
However, they just like didn't have the strongest geology program, and I felt like there was something better. So as I
Mhm.
was like finally deciding, I asked my oldest sister like once again, like I need your help. Like I don't think I like any of the schools I applied to. And
Yeah.
she actually is the one who found Montana State University because they still had their rolling admission going on and they were still accepting students. And so the application was like 15 minutes. It was like no essay required. It was really weird.
Wow.
And so I applied, and a week later, I heard I got in, and they gave me a really great scholarship. And I decided that this is where I want to go. I didn't even tour the campus. Like I was just,
Wow.
I'm going here. Like,
So I'm gonna stick to this part of your journey because for a lot of students, you wouldn't think like going into a dream school and be like, all right, you know what, I'll make the commitment, whatever it is to get into debt to get into to college, right? But for you, you really explored your options. You really said, I'm gonna sit down and think about this. MSU, I would have thought you coming from New York would be the last school you would attend. So what was that draw for you? What drew you to Montana? What I mean, you gave no school tour, so something drew you to it.
yeah, I didn't know that I really wanted to go to Montana for the longest time, but I looked into their geology program, and I think the one thing that really got me was that it was similar to CU Boulders in the sense that like they advertise so much that their geology program is like hands-on based outside.
Wow.
And like your classroom is the outdoors. And that's like what they set it up as. And like we have this capstone class in the geology program here that's 3 weeks of camping. And you get to like put all of the skills that you've learned. I just took it this past summer actually, and you get to take like all the skills you learned and go map areas in like locally in Montana, just like everything. And it's crazy. And like I heard of like other colleges, and like I researched their similar like capstones for this major, and it was like 2 3 days, and I was like, oh,
Mhm.
I get 3 weeks versus 2 3 days. And I just like looked at the general courses, and most of them were super interesting. A lot of the professors here do great work. A lot of them do like what I want to do, which is like tectonics and seismology. And like we have a really good volcanologist specialist here who I got to work under this semester. So yeah, it was really just like the dedication to the program of geology that they had.
That's wonderful. So how did your family respond to your goal to attend college? You already gave us kind of a good synopsis, but I want to kind of get an understanding of like how each individually responded to this goal of yours to go to college, especially in Montana.
Yeah. So like once I got really into geology and they like knew that's what I wanted to do, and like I told them I was gonna go to college for it, it became like very obvious that I didn't want to stay around in New York and that I was like ready to move somewhere else and like experience something new.
Hmm.
So they like weren't really surprised when I was like, "Hey guys, I'm moving 2,000 miles away from home." They were like, "Yeah, that checks out." Like,
So
and
they weren't like shocked at all. Like, I guess my family, and this is just to kind of like share my little story with you, is
yeah,
like uh, going to college for me was 20 miles away, and my mom was devastated. Like, you're going 20 miles away. That's a 30-minute drive. And she was devastated, right?
yeah.
So it to me, it's like a little bit of a what? Like your family was like, yeah, she's gonna move 2,000 miles away. That checks out. That's cool.
Yeah. I think it's just because like I had like gotten them used to the idea for so long that they were like not surprised. My parents were definitely like, "We're gonna miss you." Like my mom especially, she was like so distraught. She was like, "I'm never
Mm.
gonna see my baby girl ever again." And I was like, "Mom,
Oh,
you're gonna come home. Like it's okay."
yeah,
Like, um, my dad like was kind of like, like trying to be like all tough about it, but
for
they
sure.
weren't like really like too concerned. They were like worried about me being in a new place super far. Like they were worried more about my safety if anything, because they
Hmm.
were like, you're gonna be totally alone. Like I have one family member out here, and at the time when I like accepted into MSU. We didn't even know that this person lived out here. So they're like, you're gonna have no family. And I had been surrounded by family my entire life. So they were like, it's just gonna be a really big change for you. And they like wanted to make sure that I was like okay with that. But yeah, and like especially because the only person who has explored this far west is my sister, who has like traveled a lot. I mean, they've all been out here now, so they all know what it looks like now. But
good. Yeah.
And it all worked out. But yeah, and they felt much better once they found out I had a family member here as well. So
Very, very good. I know that moving to a new place is, and I'll share this my personal experience with you. I moved to Colorado 8 years ago. I'm still very much like, I love Colorado and I wouldn't trade it for the world, but there's still some adjustments that I have to make. Do you find yourself still kind of adjusting to Montana, or do you feel like you fully adapted?
I feel like I still am adjusting, especially because there is a very like big thing about like out of staters versus in staters here, especially with the local community, because it's just like impacted them significantly after like COVID, and like a bunch of people started moving here because like a bunch of people quit their jobs and were like, I want to go live my life, like which is like totally fair. And so I feel like that dynamic has been very like hard to struggle with, because like a lot of people see that you're like from out of state and they just like assume the worst, and I'm like, I promise I'm not that bad, so I feel like that is like the one thing that I like still can't adjust to sometimes, because I'm like, we just need to like be a little kinder. But yeah, overall I feel like I'm a very outdoorsy person, and I love to do all the things that are very relative to the community, and I'm always like very respectful wherever I travel. So I feel like overall it's not like it's totally bad, but
very good. So here you are approaching high school graduation. What did high school graduation mean to you, and what did it mean to your family?
Yeah, I mean, high school graduation, it was like meaningful in the sense that I was the last DeMarco in my family of like 20 cousins who went to this school to finally graduate from Eden Central School District. So that was like very huge. Like a lot of my teachers were like, you're the last DeMarco I'm ever gonna have, and I've taught here for 30 years. Like and like that was very well known. And so that part was like very meaningful for me, because I was like, wow, like my family really made an impact, either good or bad, on this school. And like everyone like knew my last name somehow. It was really crazy. But I also was like extremely ready to move on with life, and like I was just super excited. Like my whole senior year I was just like, I'm gonna go to Montana, like I can't wait, like and that's like what I looked forward to my entire year. So I was like, it was meaningful in the sense that like I was done with high school, but it was also meaningful in the sense that I was done with high school. Like
absolutely. So you're currently a student here at Montana State University in Bozeman. I'm not going to ask you why you chose the school, because I think that rehashing this question, we know why you attended the school. Why do you love now this school? What makes you very proud to be at Montana State University?
Yeah, I think I love the atmosphere that MSU brings. We have a student body that just reached like 17,000 students. And so our student body is huge. We have a massive school here. And the atmosphere that these students bring to campus is just truly undeniable. It is so joyful. And I like feel very involved on campus, and I feel very welcomed that I've been here for a couple of years. And I just share a lot of passions with this school now, and I feel like that has been like the most rewarding experience, and like something that I love most about this school. And like it's very easy to get to know one each other, especially my major. It's like such a niche topic that our classroom sizes, like for my major, there's usually like 30 students per classroom, which is like pretty much like high school. Like
sure.
I feel like having the smaller classroom experience, even though we have such a large student body, like has made all the difference as well. Like I've had the same friend group since my freshman year of college, and that just hasn't changed.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Talk about the moment you set foot on campus. What was that moment like for you?
Yeah, so that moment was full of excitement still. Since I didn't even bother like touring the school, my first moment on campus was like really my first moment. I like remember walking into the dorms, and I was like, this is where I'm gonna live, like this is great. And like my parents were with me, and my dad was like making jokes the whole time and like just being my dad, and it was really fun. And then I got up to my room, and I saw the best view of the Bridger Range here, which is the skiing mountain, and it was like perfect view from my window because I was on like the
Wow.
10th floor of this building.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, this is home. Like, I cannot wait to like go to that mountain and ski there and study the rocks on there. Like, I was like, that is exactly like what I want to do. And like, I have so many photos of just that like view alone my freshman year.
Hmm.
Because it's like, it was just like such confirmation that like I chose the right place.
That is awesome. I feel like that's super validating for a lot of students when they feel at home at their institution that they've chosen. That's very super important. Would you agree that because of that feeling and the passion that you have for education and geology, that's what continues to motivate you?
Yeah, that definitely is a huge motivational factor for me, especially like for because I know I want to go to grad school and like knowing that I love what I do is like definitely been a huge thing overall. And like every day, I feel like that's more like enriched into my future and like into my brain is that like I love what I do. And there's been a couple moments where I'm like I doubt myself. Like I remember my first
Oh,
like
for
B
sure.
minus on an exam for geology and I was like that's it. I can't pursue my major anymore. Like
Oh,
but in reality like that's like it's one exam out of like the hundreds you're probably going to take so you're going to be fine. Like and
absolutely.
so yeah, that's kind of
So we want to know more about your college experience. What are the highlights? What have you enjoyed most so far?
yeah, so my college experience is pretty full. I wear a lot of hats on campus. My passion for geology hasn't changed since being here. However, I definitely have narrowed it into like seismicity, tectonics, and petrology, and like what those can apply through Earth's surface structures. And I've also just been more involved with extracurriculars, especially through TRIO. I became like very passionate about my first gen identity because it's like not like I always knew I was first gen, but I never like really knew what that meant and like how that impacted people because I just thought
Hmm.
like my upbringing was the same as everyone else's and I just kind of thought like everyone struggles this way when that's like not the case. Um
Hmm. Hmm.
and so like most of my highlights include like being proud of my first gen identity, creating resources for students. I created my own club on campus for first gen students. I'm a part of two committees. I've been involved in undergraduate research, which is huge. I also first time skiing at Bridger is definitely up there. um, and definitely all the friends that I've made. Like I have like my geology friends, and then I have like my friends that I made my freshman year of college that I still talk to like to this day.
That is wonderful. So I'm going to pause right here and ask you to go back. What is this club that you formed? And like, how exciting was that to really be the founder of a club?
Yeah, so the club is the First Generation Students Association. You can find us through email or on Instagram. And I can also give that information to you. But
Wonderful. Yeah, love that.
yeah, and it was a really creative experience to found an organization on campus because like I was approached along with like on another group of students and we were just kind of like called in for a meeting. Like we all got this random email from apparently the first generation committee which exists, which I'm now on, but at the time I was like, who are you? And they just like emailed a bunch of us and they were like, hi, like we're interested in like forming a student group on campus. We reached out to multiple people who we think could be like a good role model for this and we want to know if you're interested in meeting. So I walked into this room and there were like 20 other kids there and we were all
Mhm.
like, what's going on? And they were like, this is like what our ideas and like if you guys like want to form together and create this. And it ended up being me and this one student in particular, Flor Vega Castillo. She was a grad student at the time. She still is a grad student actually.
Oh,
She's just higher in her graduate field now. But and I was a sophomore when I did this, but we both got together and we were like, we want to do this, like we want to take charge of this. And it was stressful because like we had to like submit a bank account, like we have to like
oh,
run like IRS tax files for this now. And like it's definitely a hefty process, but the reward I get from doing that kind of stuff every day now is like so extremely good. And I would not trade that for the world. And like starting my own organization, it's also like a huge like when I tell people I did that, they're like, what? Like it's a huge resume booster and like it just gets the conversation going about like first gen resources.
absolutely. So you're currently studying geology.
Yep.
We already know why you chose this field, but I want you to explain to the audience what have you learned so far at Montana State that has really drawn you closer to geology?
Yeah, so before it was more like I really love the way Earth looks, and like I want to know more about this. And now it's definitely like more focused on educating the public about geology and like how to be more respectful of nature, and also like we call it lithology description, so like identifying rocks and like writing this big description on them
Hmm.
is very useful in my fields, because when other people go to do research there, they can like already have a basis of what they're looking at. And I have found that I really like that part of my work for some reason. But so yeah, I really love like petrology and seismology now, and like lithology descriptions. And it's kind of like what I'm doing right now. I'm currently studying volcaniclastic rocks,
Mm.
which are sedimentary rocks and that have been like kind of altered by volcanoes. Very like weird. It's very hard to explain. Very weird process. But I'm studying like if this volcanic eruption like has occurred, and like if it's recorded. That's
Mm.
like kind of what the PhD student that I'm studying under is like doing with her overall PhD defense. I'm taking a portion of that and just focusing on like the petrology, so like the rock description part, and then
Yeah,
like relating this to its tectonic configuration over time. And that's like kind of what I've drawn out from MSU, is like that specific research project has
that
been
is
kind of
awesome.
like my child for this past year. Like
That is amazing, by the way. Like, I know I love when students are able to nerd out about the things that they're really passionate about. Like, the reason you attended college in the first place is to really study the thing that you've been wanting to study.
right, exactly.
How did you learn about the TRIO McNair program and how did that come about?
Yeah, so I applied through MSU through rolling admission, and then I got that acceptance letter. And the financial aid office reached out with my package, and then they also sent a separate email, and they were like, based off of your application, we actually think that you would be a really good fit for TRIO Student Support Services.
Oh, okay.
And I had like no clue what that was. So I immediately asked my sister, and I was like, what is this? And she actually was like, I think I was in a similar program. And she was like, it was called McNair though. And I was like, okay. So later on we found out same thing.
Ah,
So we found out that she was also a TRIA student, and that was really cool. But
yeah.
so I asked my sister like what it meant and if I should apply, because I like was reading the eligibility. And I
Hmm.
was like, well, I got a Pell Grant, but I don't know what that means. And I was like, I am a first gen, but like, does that really apply to me? Like,
Hmm.
and those are like the different, like some of the different demographics that Trio supports. And so she kind of like narrowed it down, and she was like, yeah, like you'd be a good fit for this. I filled out my application, and then I heard from our program director a couple weeks later, and I went in for like a meet and greet session.
Wow. So, can you tell me what have you enjoyed most about this program?
Yeah, I enjoyed getting to know more of like my first gen identity, and like really connecting with it, because like I'd always known I first gen, never really cared about it. Um, but as I got like more involved with Trio, I realized that like it's not normal to struggle the way that I did, and like to go through all of these things and like the hidden curriculum, and like finding all of that out and navigating it. I've really like found a lot of joy in that, and like found that like their sole job in life is to help people, and I thought that
Hmm.
was really nice.
Yeah.
I've also really enjoyed the staff. The Trio Center on my campus is like the best place ever. The staff does an amazing job at just like making you feel welcomed. Everyone's always laughing there. They have a great sense of humor. It brings a
Awesome.
smile like to my day every day. I'm there at least once a day. It's more like 2, 3 times a day between classes. So yeah, I use that place as often as I can.
That is amazing. So I'm going to give you the floor and space here, Natalie, to talk about how this program has made a difference in your educational experience.
Yeah, so their impact in my educational experience has been huge. Not only have they given me the resources to thrive in my own academics, but they also gave me the tools to start my own resources. So, like, I've been always like a committed member to the TRIO program. And then in my second year, as I became more passionate about it, I formed my own student org, the First Gen Student Association, which you mentioned. And that was in November of 2022. And since its creation, I was the founding vice president, and I now hold the presidential term for 2024. Our club has grown to over 100 members, which I think we're at like 152 right now, last I checked.
Mhm. That
Um,
congratulations. That's still huge growth.
yeah, thank you. And we host like annual events to celebrate culture, improve networking skills, and educate the public on the first gen identity. Some of our events include like our Independence Fiesta. So we hosted this big celebration on July 6th to celebrate the independence of Peru, Colombia, Argentina, and Venezuela. And we had like over 200 people show up. And it was like the middle of the summer. So I was like, nobody's going to go, right? Like, but so many people showed up. And then we had like the president of MSU show up like unexpectedly. And we were like, okay, like, yeah, and that was great. I personally wasn't actually there for that event. Unfortunately, I was back home in New York. But our president at the time and the other co-founder like did a great job executing that. And this semester, I actually wanted to do something very similar, still Culture Center, but maybe not the same event. So I actually, our student group hosted our Fiesta de Sabros to celebrate the end of Hispanic Heritage Month, and we like got all of this food that was like culturally recognized throughout different countries in Latin America, and we all like got it cooked by like these student chefs who work at MSU, and like the other colleges kind of like partnered with us called Gallatin College. And they like worked together to like form this entire menu, and it was great. We had like 50 people show up. So yeah, which is like huge turnout still. As we like got more involved, Alejandra Campovodi, who is the author of the novel First Gen, I'm not sure if you're familiar with her work. She actually reached out to our club, which is also known as FGSA for short, because it's a huge name, for future partnership, because a student talked about our club to her at the first year experience conference in 2024. And she like reached out personally and was like, I want to be on your events. And unfortunately we weren't able to schedule something like right now. But we're hoping to get her out here within the next year or two. So we have like some pretty long-term goals with that.
Absolutely. That is amazing though. And Natalie, to have someone nationally recognized that understands first generation students to go out there and be a speaker for you all. That's amazing. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're totally good. Yeah, I was like I like saw that email and I was like, whoa. Like I was like, this is intense, guys. Like but yeah, outside of my club, I'm also a primary member on two committees. The First Generation Committee, which kind of also brought my club to life, I'm now on, and the First Generation Celebration Committee. Both of these committees thrive to support First Gen efforts during the month of November, specifically November 8th, because it's National First Gen Student Day, and throughout the academic year. The Celebration Committee focuses in November, and the regular committee focuses throughout the academic year. But just like a lot of work goes into the November events, so we have to like have a separate set of people do that. And because of my committee involvements, I was able to participate in the first annual First Gen graduation celebration, where undergraduates who were graduating in the spring of 2024 were able to receive a blue and silver cord to represent their first gen identity at the university commencement. Spring 2024 now marks the first time in MSU history where first gen students were recognized at this ceremony.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that was like a huge breakthrough. I like cried, like it was huge. Like it was really great to see that like our demographic was like finally being recognized, because you go through like the cord list in the commencement and it lists like all of these different things. But I'm like, first gen students, like that's like for MSU, we have the statistics now. It's like 17% of our student body. That's like 3,000 students that like were not being represented. And I was like, this is a problem. Like,
yeah. Well, and I'm glad that your student organization, well, you really identified that and said, we need to bring this forward and we need to recognize first generation students.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really proud of all the people who are involved, including myself, of that. Outside of these committees, I am now recognized as the only student on campus who gets paid to support first generation efforts through an AmeriCorps program that I participate in. I've been in this role since my junior year, so since last year. And due to these efforts toward the first gen movement at MSU, I've won 2 awards by MSU and the state of Montana, the MCAN Student Achiever Award and the Kenny Dye Memorial Scholarship. I was also published in a blog on the
I actually read it a little bit. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, I kept the link in like this little script thing. But yeah, I was published in a blog on the First Gen Forward page, also known as NASPA's official website, or like they have multiple different names. But anyways, this article talks about like the success that first gen students can achieve after overcoming barriers. So yeah, if you guys want to read it, go for it. But
we will include this blog and the links to it on our podcast description, so look out for it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and then like outside of that, I got more involved with like the McNair aspect. I don't know how it works on other campuses, but the TRIO services are like separated entities on our campus. So like the student support services is one group, and then the McNair Scholars Program is another group. And so I was accepted into the McNair Scholars Group for their research program at the end of my junior year, and they fund my current research that I'm doing now. And they're also paying for me to go to that conference in DC. So I was really, really thankful for that. But
Natalie, first of all, amazing work that you've been doing. Thank you for everything that you're doing in Montana at Montana State University to bring first generation students forward and to really shine a light on all the things that you all are doing up there. Fantastic work. And again, congratulations on all these honors that you're doing. And yes, we are going to include your link to the blog on our podcast description. So talk about the mentorship you received from TRIO McNair and why is mentorship important?
yeah, so the TRIO services and staff mentors, they are pretty much in every aspect of my life at this point. They've known me for 4 years now, so they know me from freshman year to now, and it's like all different sides of me. I can go there from like, I need a new study habit for this week, or this month was really rough, I need to talk about everything. They pretty much carry me through every aspect of it. And the mentorship is done mainly through our retention specialist, Meredith. She answers like all of like the unknown questions that you may have about life. She's very good at her job. It's like free therapy, I swear. But and then we also have our program coordinator, Mackenzie, who mentors students in how to like navigate and use campus resources, such as the first gen ones that now exist. And she also really strives to get students involved. I'm a prime example of that work that she's been doing for students. Without her, I like definitely wouldn't have gotten as involved as I am. And now she's always been encouraging of that aspect of me. And then the program director, who's Julian, he makes sure that you're like best supported, not only through TRIO, but like throughout campus. Especially because I think he very well understands like the power dynamic between like professors and students. So he very much is like that middle person, and he's always like bridging the gap. So if you're like having a hard time with assignments, or like you're gonna miss class for a week, like the one time I had a family member pass away and I was like, I need to go out for a week. And some of my teachers are giving me a hard time about moving exams. It was like right before finals week. And he was like, don't worry, I got you. He like CC'd me in emails and like emailed them directly and was like, we're gonna let her have the week off. Like, and he was definitely just like a huge middleman in all of those scenarios. And so yeah, they just like give students a sense of belonging, which I feel like is why mentorship is important, because as first gen students, we come to a campus not having a clue of like what to expect besides like what we see in the movies. And the mentorship from TRIO really helps guide our judgment on that. It makes this transition process like super easy.
Awesome. What do you hope to do after graduation?
After graduation, or also when I get back from study abroad, I hope to start moving on for my next adventure for graduate school. I am really planning on going to a different state for geology. I really know the geology of Montana, and I think it's time to like explore if I can truly know the geology of other states and areas. But yeah.
That's awesome. So graduate school looks like it's in the plans, it's in the picture. Have you looked into what grad schools you would like to attend, or have you already have a list of schools that you've accepted in advance for your studies?
Yeah, so my top choices right now are Oregon and Alaska, specifically the University of Oregon and University of Alaska Fairbanks. I've also briefly looked at a couple schools in Virginia as well, but I haven't like fully deep dove into those yet. I haven't done a whole lot of networking for these. I did not know that you're supposed to like start emailing professors now. To like, I thought you just submit the application in December and you're done, but apparently that's not how this works. And so I'm a little behind on that, but I have a lot of friends reassuring me that they like only just reached out last week, so I'm not too far behind. But
okay. Very good. So you said Alaska, and it made me think, okay, you're in Montana, already isolated. Alaska, that's much more isolated, no?
Yes, very much more isolated, especially because University of Alaska Fairbanks is like more inland of Alaska, so it's definitely like you're just in the freezing cold, 24-hour darkness all the time.
Wow.
Like,
is there a particular career you're hoping to pursue?
yeah, so this part I'm like have been struggling with a little bit this year, especially because I'm stuck between like if I want to pursue academia career, which is like becoming a professor, doing a tenure track, doing independent research through like funding from a university. And for that, I would most probably get like my doctoral in profession. However, like the idea of getting a master's degree and studying like geohazards and earthquakes and landslides, and kind of like applying some of my metrology knowledge to like that field instead also sounds really exciting. I'm hoping that that'll just unfold when I get to grad school. Because I don't really know what else the plan is for that.
So Natalie, your TRIO journey is truly inspiring. What advice do you have for TRIO students who are either in the pre-college, college process, or wanting to start college?
Yeah, so for all of these groups, I'd say like my biggest advice, especially because like this is something that I struggled with throughout my academic career and like even in high school, is to like not let the authority of others stop you from pursuing your dreams. And like it may be difficult and it's going to be time consuming, but just because you have limited resources and you're at a disadvantage, that doesn't mean that you can't do exactly what these other people are doing. And I think like even though it truly is like not great that we're at disadvantages, it does bring more character to the table. And I feel like overall you're going to be a better person at the end. And I personally just think that's better overall that you have more character for this.
I love that. Great advice. What is something you would like to say to TRIO professionals, not only at Montana State University, but all over the country?
Yeah, so firsthand experience from my TRIO professionals, they're great and they've helped me with everything. And so I just like want to say that like your existence working in TRIO matters so much to students. And some days you may go to work and you may feel like you did not so well at work, but I promise you, you probably made an impact in a student's day, some way, shape, or form. And like specifically at MSU, like without the staff that we have there, I don't think I would have been able to like really enjoy the TRIO programs and like use all the services that they offer. And I feel like having a staff that like is involved like that with students' lives, it like truly makes or breaks the difference. And like every day you support students not only in academia but also as friends. Like most of the time when I go to the TRIO office, like yeah, I'm gonna use resources for academics, but I'm also there to like hang out and chill for a little bit. And like sometimes we just need personal advice, and like we just learning from other TRIO mentors is just truly an experience that I take away from college. It's great.
Awesome. That is wonderful. Again, encouraging words to TRIO professionals, because I think they need to hear that often.
Yeah.
Thank you. What is something that you're currently reading, watching, or listening to?
Yeah, so I've watched all of the Hunger Game movies and I've never read the books. So this summer I dove really deep into the books and I was like, I'm gonna buy them and like actually read them. And so I'm on the third one now, which is Mockingjay. I actually left it back home when I visited in August, and so I haven't been able to read it since, but I'm going home in December, so I'm hoping to pick back up on it once I get back there.
Very quickly, impressions on book over the movie or movie over the book?
Book over the movie. That's like, it's just fact in my opinion. Like always the book over the movie. Like
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Now for the toughest question on the podcast so far, using only one word, describe yourself.
I would say that I describe myself as empowering.
I love that. That is really good. What is your personal motto or mantra?
So this is coming from like early childhood experience, like be your most exuberant self and like just don't care. Like you just be your like most authentic person.
That is awesome. I love that. Are there any folks you would like to recognize or honor on this podcast?
Yeah, I definitely want to give a huge shout out to the TRIO staff at MSU, Julian, Mackenzie, and Meredith. They're always making sure I'm supported, and they're my family away from home, and they're just great to be around. I would also like to thank my actual family for instilling in me that I can do anything and providing me with like my huge sense of self-worth and knowing that I like wouldn't be where I am today without their support.
Natalie, again, your TRIO story has been truly amazing to listen to. It's been a pleasure to get to know you. Thank you so much for being in the Let's Talk TRIO podcast, and again, for sharing your journey with us.
Yeah, thank you, Juan, for listening to my story. I hope your listeners gain something from my story and that it impacts the future generations of first-gen students at TRIO.
Absolutely. So we have a tradition on the Let's Talk TRIO podcast where we have the guests sign off at the end of every episode. Do you care to do the honors?
Sure, I don't know how good I'll be, but I'll try.
You'll do great.
Okay. Hi, this is Natalie DeMarco, and I'm a TRIO McNair Scholar at Montana State University-Bozeman. I'm currently studying geology, and I'm going abroad to Australia next spring. When I get back, I hope to attend graduate school in the fall of 2025. TRIO works.
Are you a participant, alum, or staff of a TRIO program? Do you want your program highlighted? You or your program could be featured in an upcoming episode of Let's Talk TRIO. Get a hold of us by going to our Facebook page or Instagram and send us a direct message. Search for Let's Talk TRIO. We want to get your story to the public.
That was our guest, Natalie DeMarco, TRIO McNair participant at Montana State University-Bozeman. Natalie, thank you so much for being on the podcast and for sharing your TRIO journey. Remember, if you would like to be on the Let's Talk TRIO podcast or know a staff, advocate, participant, or alumni, send us an email at letstalktrio@gmail.com. That email again is letstalktrio@gmail.com. A heartfelt thanks to our individual supporters, Angelica Vialpando, Dr. Jamie Motley, Dr. Ryan Barone, Dr. Jeff Nepute, Angelica Valdez, Rosario Riley, Felicia Rivera, Eric LaMaster, and Jaded Electronics. A huge thanks to our corporate sponsors, TrioJoblist.com, Nosotros Education Center, the TRIO Store, powered by Proforma. Visit www.thetriostore.com, your source for TRIO graduation stoles, and StudentAccess. Thank you all so much for your continued support of this podcast. You too can sponsor the Let's Talk TRIO podcast in one of three ways. Become a monthly patron on Patreon. Our base level starts at $1 a month. Become a corporate sponsor by placing an ad on the podcast. Contact us for details. Become a supporter with a one-time donation to the podcast PayPal account. Our business handle is @Let'sTalkTrio. I'd like to take a moment to thank our honorary members of the Let's Talk TRIO podcast, Roderick Chambers, Tony Ho, Scott Kendall, and Susan Cramp. The Let's Talk TRIO podcast team is John Russell, audio engineer, music producer and composer, and post-production editor. Amelia Castaneda, script supervisor, marketing manager, social media manager, and producer. Juan Rivas, executive producer and host. Be sure to follow the Let's Talk TRIO podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. This episode was recorded Monday, October 21st, 2024. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will catch you on the next episode.